If I were to open up a bubble tea shop in 2024, this is what I would do. In a world that craves indulgence and innovation, bubble tea has been able to transcend its roots and be able to branch out to become a global delight. As we step forward into 2024, the demand for bubble tea is simply just going to continuously grow as it shows no signs of wavering. It's about displaying your creativity and be able to create a experience that your customers will love from today, tomorrow, and into the future. But before we dive directly into it, let's go ahead and make a drink. All right, so I got my mate here. I'm ready to roll. Let me just take a quick sip, give you some ASMR. All right, before we get started, let me lay the groundwork for what this video is and is not going to be. What we will not cover will be like the more technical nitty-gritty items, such as your LLC, payroll, your training manual. We're not going to be touching those kind of things. Instead, we'll be talking about building a bubble tea brand. And the way we're going to tackle this is through three parts. First part is going to be the foundation of it, what you need, the most basic things that you need to start a bubble tea shop. The second one would be if you have no money. Third option would be if you have some money. The some money part, it's going to look a little big and it's going to be a little scary of the numbers, but to be able to open up shop, it takes a lot of funding capital, okay? So for the very first step, you basically need to know the basics of how to make boba. I know that sounds really dumb and simple as the most obvious thing, but you need to know, how to make tapioca pearls. You need to know what popping boba is. You would need to know what red bean is, jelly. You just need to know the toppings and how ingredients work, along with your capacity. So for this one, it's really your kitchen capacity, what you can create, how much you can create, and be able to transport. So that's just something that I would definitely recommend for you to know and understand. The second part is be able to have a validated menu. What drinks are popular, what drinks aren't popular, what you can make confidently, and what the market really wants. So for this one, I would recommend, trying out a few different recipes, a few, menu samples, do it in very small portions, and get your family and friends to try it. Once you kind of get a feeling of what people may or may not want, start asking like random folks. Normally, I would recommend getting a little bit of family and friends feedback in the beginning, but know that they are your family and friends. They may or may not give you the right feedback, or they might be completely too harsh and actually steer you away from who your target customer is. Remember, your family and friends are not always your target audience. All right, now we're gonna move into a portion of video where if you're broke AF and you're trying to get this started, what you would need to do. So for this, I would recommend starting out very small, doing pop-ups, doing events, doing farmers market. And I want to be clear that we're talking about like smaller events, not festivals. Festivals are a completely different beast that I will only recommend you doing after you have a few years of experience, depending on how large the festival is. You don't want to try to do festivals and you get completely overwhelmed if it's a very large festival. So I would really recommend focusing on small events, farmers market, and pop-ups. So for a lot of these, for the pop-ups, you could start very small at the beginning and, test a very short menu for that one. So that way you can see what works, what doesn't work, and get customer feedback. That is a golden ticket. You want to get as much customer feedback as you can so that way you can see whether or not the sweetness is correct or maybe it's type of milk. Perhaps you thought that, having your milks in an ice cooler would be the best method, but you notice that the ice is melting a lot quicker given the location you're in. Like if you're in Texas and you see the ice just melts it really quickly, so a lot of your items get water damage. So that's just one area where you could test while doing pop-ups. Next one would be kind of like if you had small events, maybe someone asks you to do catering, maybe there's a small get-together, or perhaps you're at a AAPI or BIPOC event or whatever it may be. My pop-up that I normally do for like 2 or 3 hours, doing these events is about 6 hours long. Let me see how this works and so forth, So that would be a good example of something you could try. And the last one would be to do farmers market. So prior to doing the farmers market, I highly recommend doing a reconnaissance and be able to see, which market will best suit you. Maybe you want something that's a little bit on the slower side, so that way you're able to understand how to make your drinks in a very short time frame. Because a farmer's market is probably the closest you'll get to experiencing having a shop. In addition to doing farmers market, it will also allow you to figure out which markets really works well for your type of goods that you're serving. Remember, take any and all customer feedback you can, jot it down in your backlog, and then be able to have things improved and reiterate so that way you can nail it in the future. One tip I forgot to mention towards the beginning of the video would be to make sure that you have some kind of note-taking app or journal to be able to check out the progress of each drink as you decide to reiterate over and over and over again, and to be able to collect customer feedback. So that way you're able to review it down the road and be able to see what kind of progress you have made. In the last section, we will do a rough budget of between $100,000 to $150,000 to open up a bubble tea shop. Now, the price range I just gave, it may or may not be that amount. It might be more, it might be less. Just depends on your location and what you have available. And if you decide to add more than just bubble tea, if you decide to do crepes on the side, if you decide to do, fried chicken, fries, ice cream, whatever it may be, just know that it's kind of a rough pricing. First and foremost, the one thing I want to figure out is if I want to start the bubble tea brand from scratch or to do a franchise. Both of them have their pros and cons, but in this video, just to keep it simple, we'll just do it from scratch. If you want me to talk about starting a bubble tea franchise, that's something I could do in a different video. Just comment below if that's something you're interested in. So as a classic business student I am, the first thing I'm going to say is location, location, location. Once again, market analysis will help dictate where you can open, what your target market would be. Sometimes locations help play a very big part in your success. If you are in an area that you may not be catering the menu towards, or maybe they're not familiar with what bubble tea is, you're going to have an uphill battle. Okay? And just know that when that's the case, then you not just have your marketing costs, you also have your education costs. Education costs is different from your market costs, only because for education, you are now having to educate customers what bubble tea is rather than them knowing what it is right away. Okay, so that's just one thing I would recommend for you to figure out during your market analysis. If you aren't sure if bubble tea is the career path you want to go down towards, I recommend getting a very small place at the very beginning. Of course, with a smaller location, that will be very hard to find, especially in the suburbs. If you're in the city, you might be able to get away with looking for a 500, 600 square foot, but in suburbs, that's very difficult to do. With this, basically what occurs is you have to work with the architects, the designers, zoning, planning, fire department. And the reason why this takes long is because your architect and your designer might have came up with something. You're like, okay, cool. This is great. This looks good. And then when they submit it, the county might reject it and say, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Even if you had gone to these places in the beginning to get all the necessary requirements, they may still come back and say, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. Even if you have a best friend that works in the county and the zoning department or in building or wherever it may be, this is the one that will take the absolute longest. Any small business owner I've spoken to, this is the one area that they all run into, and it just draws out the process even longer. So know that you may have a deadline in order to build everything out and have everything up and running. This thing you'll get hit over and over again. Okay, so just be prepared for that. During this long strenuous application process, I will recommend finding the equipment you need, continue perfecting your menu, see what ingredients you can source, especially at bulk prices. Upon opening, know that you're going to work a butt ton of hours. Seriously, whatever you had planned in the beginning is probably going to go out the window, okay? You could probably had plan A, and then you may have a plan B, but know that A and B, you're probably going to blow through. Then you have C, D, E, and F. Just be prepared and know that everything you have to do is just going to go back into the process, rework it, and hopefully you could come out on top. As we conclude this guide for opening up your bubble tea shop in 2024, know that the world of bubble tea is a canvas for building a community. Be able to create a space where flavors mend with creativity and be able to see your community grow. In the fast-paced world of a beverage industry, keep in mind that adaptability is the key to success. Keep an open mind, embrace the difficulties and challenges, and continuously refine your products. That way your customers can praise it at the top of their lungs. So go ahead and infuse your passion into every single cup that you make. And here's to you for 2024, and hopefully you'll be able to flourish in the beverage industry.